going on, YouTube? rdapdan here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic weekend. Today we have a special guest. He's actually, I consider him to be a pretty good friend of mine, and a few of you have heard me talk about him on some of my other YouTubes. Elford Casimir is a gentleman that also spent some time in federal prison. He also went through Rdap. He is an Rdap graduate, and he did it at the same location as me at Rdap Low. So how are you doing, Elford?
I'm doing really good, Dan. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. And it's weird calling you Elford because obviously in Rdap we go by last name. So I've always called you Casimir. So it's funny. I feel like I don't even know your first name. I feel like I'm talking to you.
Same here, Mr. Dan. Same here.
So we're going to tell everybody a little bit about your story, and clearly your story is different than mine, especially as far as the Rdap journey portion of it. How much time were you sentenced to, Elford?
I was sentenced to 37 months.
And how much time did you serve in federal prison on that 37 months?
I served a total of 21 months.
So you served 21 months on 37 months, where I served 13 months on 42 months. So there's a big swing there. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how and why and what was the difference. So we're going to explain that a little bit later on in detail. But let's kind of back it up a minute and tell people a little bit about your background and how you got into this. From what I understand, you were driving a 18-wheeler. You were self-contracted basically to drive a truck, correct?
That's correct.
Did you own the truck?
No, I didn't own the truck. It was owned by another individual.
So another individual owned the truck, and he basically hired you to drive his truck.
Yeah.
What were you charged with? What was the actual charge that sent you to prison?
Drug trafficking with the intent to distribute.
And what were you trafficking?
1,900 pounds of marijuana. I told them that it was for personal use, but they didn't believe me.
1,900 pounds of personal use, top A grade green bud, huh?
I don't know if it was A grade, but I didn't get a chance to try it out. But I'm pretty sure the feds have some idea.
Okay, so you were charged with trafficking marijuana, 1,900 pounds, just under a ton. What was it like? First off, did you know you were trafficking marijuana, being it was not your truck?
I did a total of 3 runs. First run, no. Second run had a very good idea. Third run, the money sounded really good.
How much money were they offering you on your first, second, and third run?
In the beginning was a total of 10. My third run, it was a total of 27 grand.
So it ranged from $10,000 a run to $27,000 a run.
Yeah.
And basically, how far were you driving?
I was driving from Florida all the way to Texas, as far as Laredo, Texas.
Okay, so you were cross country basically.
Yeah.
So the day that it all went down, what was going through your mind?
What was going through my mind is that I'm a professional actor. I can get out of this. Didn't work out that well. Didn't work out that way. I was definitely scared. I'm very, very scared. First time ever incarcerated for anything, even let alone put in handcuffs.
So your first time put in handcuffs. And I do remember you telling me this story. I remember you saying that basically the guy that you were driving the truck for was also basically a middleman. So the first 2 times you were driving the truck, you were driving for a middleman. The third time you were driving the truck, you actually were dealing directly with the owner of the truck, and you were being offered more money, which means the other person that you were originally driving for was technically being cut out of the deal, which put more money into your pocket, at the same time took money out of his pocket. So the day you got caught, it wasn't by chance. You weren't just getting pulled over randomly by Department of Transportation. This guy actually phoned in a phone call kind of tagging you as to what you were driving, So when they pulled you over, it wasn't a routine stop. It was kind of a setup, correct?
That's how I see it. Now, this is all speculation, but looking back, it had to be that way. I did not take my case to trial, so I did not look at my discovery. But within the interviewing process with the agents, they had no clue where I was, what I was doing, and they were looking for a specific truck number, specific trailer number, and went me. So yeah, the dime was dropped on me.
Okay, the dime was dropped. What made you on trip number 3? Trip number 2, you had an idea, but you could still kind of play the naive card. Trip number 3, your amount of money jumps from 10 grand to 27, almost $30,000 on trip number 3. So now you know you're doing something illegal. You're driving drugs, you're driving guns. You don't know what you're driving, but you know it's something illegal. At that point, why didn't you stop? What made you push forward with it?
Well, I was already out there. First of all, I had some situations going on in my life, child support, 3 kids. Work wasn't really going very well for me here in Florida. Didn't have a place of my own. And just things weren't working out for me. So I figured, hey, I made it through the second time, not knowing. I'll make it again this third time, not knowing. So I try to fool myself and play the naive card and not actually knowing where it was, but knowing that I had something, but I didn't have something if I didn't believe that I didn't have something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you. So you justified it, basically the money.
Absolutely.
$30,000 when you're broke can pay a lot of bills and get you out of a lot of situations. So I'm sure a lot of people out there right now that are watching this video not only can relate, but they've probably been through similar situations, maybe a different situation with a similar outcome. So now you're taken into custody, and I'm assuming you're taken to a local county jail and wherever you were in Texas, correct?
Yes, I was in Texas, McAllen, Texas.
And you were taken to county jail in Texas?
Yes, not before I got interrogated by the federal agents um, the same day at their facility. And then I went to a local county jail.
And how long did you sit in that local county jail?
I sat in that jail for a day to go see the judge. Once I saw the judge, then they placed me in a detention center. And a detention center is a third-party facility that the federal facility used for illegal immigrants and also federal pending inmates, I guess.
So you were in some sort of a federal holdover waiting for transportation.
Actually, I was waiting to be sentenced first, waiting to plead guilty, then waiting to be sentenced, and then waiting for transit.
And how long did all that take?
That whole process took about a good 6 months,
Did
7
you
months almost.
were you able to get bond during this time?
Yes, I did get bond. 2 months into being at the detention center, I did receive bond. I flew back home to Florida, no ankle monitor, just had to do a color coding call. And when my color is called, I go into the court of clerks and go ahead and do that whole process thing. And I was out for a total of 2 months.
So during this 2 months that you're out on federal bond or like pretrial probation, basically with under the Fed's jurisdiction, you decided at this point to plead guilty. What made you make the decision to plead guilty versus potentially going to trial?
With the advice and the guidance of my parents, my girlfriend, and also other folks who said that they knew other folks who did time, said you don't want to mess with the feds. Just whatever they give you, take it. So I just went in that aspect and pled guilty.
Did they ever tell you what type of time you could be looking at if you did not accept the plea?
Yes, my lawyer did tell me my guideline was 5 to 40 years. So pleading guilty, I had no idea where I was going to fall in that guideline, but I knew that my guideline started at 5 years to 40 years with the amount of drugs that I had and also my criminal history.
So 5 to 40 years for the amount of drugs, and your criminal history, I'm assuming, was a 0, correct?
Zero, never been incarcerated for anything. This is my first time.
Were you actually offered a plea?
Yes, I was actually offered a plea by the district attorney. They offered me a total of 7 years, the plea out to 7 years. My lawyer told me to take that deal, and he showed me how the point system worked, how he can work it down for me to 5 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years.
And what was that with, like acceptance of responsibility, things like that, like basically owning up what you did and not wasting the Fed's time, dragging it through trial?
Absolutely. It's pleading guilty, accepting responsibility was 2 points. Being that it was my first time, that was 2 points. By the grace of the man upstairs, that new law came in as far as first-time offenders with no weapon charges, no violent history. They automatically, and they have drug charges, they automatically gave them a 2-point deduction. So that was another 2-point deduction for me also right there. And also there's a 2-point deduction for receiving the minor role. And the minor role is being the lowest guy in the totem pole. And that was still pending for me. I didn't get that until the very day of my sentence.
So during this entire time, clearly the drugs weren't yours. You were transporting the drugs. Did anybody else end up getting in trouble at all for this specific incident?
No, thank God that they didn't. I didn't know this at the time, but if there was one more guy added to my case, that would have been my guideline would have changed from 5 to 40 to 10 to 40. So I would have started at 10 years because that would have been a conspiracy.
So you avoided any type of conspiracy charge. Good for you.
Yes.
So going to trial, you're looking at 5 to 40. Accepting a plea, you're pretty much capped out the gate. You know, the most time they could possibly give you is 7 years. And was there a minimum?
Yes, I believe the minimum was 5. Minimum was 5 years.
And how did you get reduced on the minimum?
Well, because of that new law that they passed, that first time offender drug charge. Yeah, the point reduction.
Okay.
So that judged me underneath my guideline.
So you got some favorable cards there that were dealt to you at the end that some people get, some people don't. Sounds like your attorney did a decent job for you, at least providing stuff in the right direction.
Yeah, he did, but actually it was nothing that a regular point accorded point what's the word I'm looking for?
Public defender.
Court appointed attorney. Yeah, public defender. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, nothing that a public defender couldn't have done for me also.
Okay, so now you're out on bond. You decide you're going to plead guilty. You're back in Florida, right? Because you live in Orlando. That's where you live. So you had to fly back to Texas, plead guilty. When you flew back to Texas to plead guilty, did you know at that point that they were going to detain you and not release you?
No, my lawyer told me that they were going to release me. I would have gone back out on bond. He was going to request it. He lightly requested, hey, Judge, we would like to also have him back on bond and go ahead and arrange what he needs to arrange with his family. But no, had no idea that they were going to detain me that day.
What was the feeling at that moment when you got taken into custody?
Very disappointed. Obviously, I had people waiting for me at home. I had a round trip flight. So obviously I wasn't going to make it. But the judge did tell me that due to the fact that the agents weren't there that day, it was going into the weekend, I would have to wait till the following Monday to come back in. And if the agent said that I am accepting responsibility, that they were going to allow me to go back on federal bond.
But after, I guess, speaking to family and friends and just taking some advice from others, you had decided that maybe, hey, you know you're going to prison. The time's got to start somewhere. So you just decided to stay in and get the clock going?
Absolutely. Out of 37 months, I figured I've got another 2 months to go before I'm sentenced. Why not spend that time starting my time right now? So I decided to stay at the detention center and start my time. So by the
Now
time I get sentenced, it'll be
let's
shorter.
how much time did you serve before? So now you're detained.
Mhm.
You're in Texas. You're waiting to get sentenced. How long did it take from this point to getting sentenced?
I sat for a total of 2 to 2.5 months.
So 2 to 2.5 months plus the 2 months when you originally got arrested while you were waiting to get out on bond. So now we've sat for about 4 to 4.5 months in lockup waiting to get sentenced, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So now once you got sentenced, how long did it take from the time you got sentenced to actually get to your final destination, which in your case is Coleman Low?
It took a total of four. It took a total of 4 to 5 months to get there.
So this is 4 to 5 months after you got sentenced. So now we've got four to
After
five
that's
months. So 4 to 5 months for that, plus the 4 months that you had spent sitting in county. So we're at about 9, 10 months right now that you have already done time before you ever got to Coleman.
That's right.
Okay, so your points are pretty low, meaning, from my understanding, your guidelines, where you landed on your criminal history, you were camp eligible, correct?
Yeah, I was actually designated to go to Pensacola camp.
So unfortunately, during your BOP transit from Texas to getting to Florida, you had a few different stops on the way.
Yeah, I did. My first BOP facility holdover was actually Oklahoma, and that was the big Oklahoma facility where they distribute everyone to their location. So that's why I found out where I was going to Pensacola.
Now, in Oklahoma, in the holdover, are they cells? Are they cubes like we had at Coleman? Or what was the living arrangements there like?
It was a very, very big dorm. Is different levels. I believe it goes up to 13 floors.
Okay.
Each floor is like a diamond or pendant shape where it has cells, and each cells has two bunks and sink, toilet, and a shower. Actually, that was the very first place where I actually had a real mirror and a light switch and a small window that I can actually look outside. So it wasn't bad considering.
We'll get to you and mirrors a little bit later in this conversation. But so
Nice.
so in this cell, how many people were in the cell with you?
Two. Well, there was actually one. So it was him and I, a total of two.
And how long were you there before you had your first shakedown?
I was there for 3 days.
3 days, and then you had a shakedown?
Had a shakedown because there were two trays missing, dinner trays missing, and the correction officer had to go around and retrieve the trays.
Now,
The thing about
now, hold on, just to be clear, when you said trays were missing, they're not saying the trays are missing from your cell. They're saying trays are missing from your floor. So it could be any one of the cells that are missing the trays. So now the officer has to go through each cell until he finds the trays.
That's correct.
And then they got to your cell, and what happened?
They got to my cell and they called me as I was watching television, The Walking Dead. So I'm watching The Walking Dead, and my name was called by the lieutenant. And there were a couple of COs out there, correction officers waiting out there, not thinking anything of it, but they found a government toothbrush, which is about this size here, and the head was broken off. And the correctional officer wrote in the report that it appeared that the toothbrush was starting to be sharpened into a weapon. It was actually right there, plain sight at the windowsill.
And was that there before?
It was there before. It looked like a broken-headed toothbrush to me.
So you paid no attention to it. It was just sitting there. You were just naive to a toothbrush sitting on the windowsill.
Absolutely, it meant nothing to me.
So you had no intentions of shanking somebody or creating a riot your third day in Oklahoma.
Not the plan, but I didn't know that in Oklahoma we're all mixed. So guys that has life sentences, more time than I was looking to do, were actually mixed up with me and my floor.
So you got the lieutenant, you've got all these guys in there. What did they end up? Did they end up charging you with something?
No, they actually wrote a report, a 100 series report, and that was pending until I got in front of DHO to decide what they were going to do with me.
So for those of you that don't know what a 100 series shot is or what that means, a 100 series shot is the most severe of shots you can get, where a 300 series shot is the most least severe shot you can get. When you're given a 100 series shot, it does two things. It bumps up your custody level, which that happened to you, correct?
Yes, it did.
And secondly, they usually are going to bring you to what's called the SHU, a special housing unit, where you're put basically in some sort of solitary confinement while you're waiting to go to your hearing. Now, what camp were you designated to go to at this point, Kashmir?
I was designated to go to Pensacola Camp, which is a working camp, no fences, open to the public. Pretty much move around. It's pretty, I guess, is what inmates call sweet. It was sweet.
So you were supposed to go to Pensacola Camp, which is also in Florida. You got a 100 series shot, bumped up your custody level. They don't have a SHU at Pensacola, so your options are now you either go back to county, where a lot of the times when you're in a camp and you get a shot, they take you to county during that process. Then they eventually bring you back depending on what happens. So in your situation, they ended up bringing you to Coleman Low because Coleman Low has a SHU. Is that correct?
That's correct. Usually with a 100 series shot, like you said, a couple of things happen. They take away good time. Also, raise your custody level. And third, they ship you further away from your home. So it kind of worked in my favor that they shipped me closer to home, shipped me to Coleman Low, which is actually 40 minutes away from my residence.
So Coleman, Florida, Coleman Prison is also in Coleman, Florida. There's an actual city called Coleman, which is right by Ocala, and it's not too far from Orlando, so pretty close to where you live. What did you end up beating the shot? Did you get charged with the shot, or did you win it?
Well, it got dropped.
It got dropped.
It got dropped. I didn't win it. I never saw DHO. After spending a month there, it came back that the correction officer placed the wrong series, the wrong shot number on the report. He charged me with a 108, which is, I believe, a cell phone. But they wanted to charge me with a 104, which is manufacturing a lethal weapon.
Gotcha. So you sat in Coleman Low in the SHU, the special housing unit, lockup for 1 month. How come after the shot was dropped, you didn't get transferred to Pensacola and you ended up staying at Coleman Low?
Because I knew Coleman Low had the Rdap program, and I already had so much time taken away from me being transported from Texas all the way to Coleman. So I knew I had a short window to really get into the Rdap program to really get any time off of my sentence.
Did you have the option to stay? Was it up to you? Did you have to request this, or did they just keep you?
I'm pretty sure I had to request it. They just kept me. Other than that, when I decided to get into the Rdap program, obviously you cannot go anywhere. You have to stay at the facility where you're at. So I really had no choice after that once I decided to join the Rdap program at Coleman.
So basically what happened with Kashmir, guys, just so a lot of you understand, there's something called a manager variable, and it works in a couple of different ways. So basically what happened was the Rdap coordinator put a manager variable on Kashmir, which prevented him from leaving, even though his custody level was now back to—
Hey, 1 second. These people are probably calling me at the halfway house. I need to go ahead and confirm.
Okay, go ahead and confirm.
I'll do that.
So while he's doing that, I'll explain to you guys what's going on. He's got to go talk to the halfway house real quick.
No.
We'll probably get to listen to his conversation at the same time. So when they put a manager variable on you, that can prevent you from going anywhere else, because at the time that Casimir was getting ready to enter into RDAP, Coleman Low was having a real challenge in getting people in the program due to the 2-point reduction. A lot of people didn't qualify. A lot of people didn't want to take the program. So they were bringing people from the medium. They were giving them manager variables, pulling them into the low. People that were supposed to go to camps got designated there to take RDAP, because not every camp has RDAP. So they held Casimir to keep him for the RDAP program at Coleman Low. That's basically what happened with him there. So we will now wait for Casimir to come back.
I'm back.
Okay, and he's back. All right, so you had a manager variable put on you. You decided, or they decided, they're going to keep you there. When did you get out of the shoe?
I got out a month later, I believe March.
Okay, so sometime in March?
28th. Yeah, sometime in March I got out.
And when was the next RDAP class starting?
The next RDAP class was starting in April, I believe April 12th.
So RDAP classes aren't starting every day or every week, are they?
No, they actually start in quarters, 3-month quarters.
So basically every 90 days, a new RDAP class is somewhat starting. So in your situation, you got out of the shoe in March. When was the next RDAP class starting?
April the 12th.
So, and you were able to take advantage and get into this class, correct?
Yes, I was.
So at this point, how much time have you actually spent in federal prison at this point?
Ooh, I think a total of 16 at this time, 14 to 16.
Okay, 14 to 16 months. You've already been locked up on a 37-month sentence. Now, for those of you guys that aren't really too sure, there's a couple of things that happen in order to get into RDAP. One, you've got to qualify. And Casimir, I'm assuming when you did your PSR interview with U.S. Probation Department, did your attorney explain to you that you needed to have drug or alcohol abuse 12 months prior to being arrested?
I did not know. He did not inform me that it had to be 12 months prior of being locked up or incarcerated. I just knew that I had to have drug and alcohol abuse in my history.
Okay, but you were not aware that it needed to be 12 months prior to being arrested, correct?
No, I didn't know.
So when you explained to probation department, it sounds like that you just kind of got lucky explaining to them when they asked you, well, when is the last time that you used?
Yeah, I actually did get lucky with that.
Okay. And, you know, and that's pretty common. We see that a lot where, not that attorneys are attempting to, you know, to cause you any hiccups or throw wrenches into your plan, but a lot of them just don't really understand the ins and outs in RDAP. They know that you can get time off and that it's a drug-based program, but they don't understand the exact qualification. So just to make it clear to you guys, RDAP, it's 2 parts. You get time off for completing the program, but you also have to be able to do 6 months of what's called TDAP. Basically, once you go to the halfway house, you've got to have at least 6 months of halfway house in order to, or is it 4 months?
No, you have to at least have 6 months.
6 months. Okay. So 180 days, basically, you have to be able to do 180 days in halfway house, because twice a week, you're going to be doing RDAP. It's going to be 1 class a week. That's going to be with everybody. And then you're usually going to have a one-on-one session with your RDAP counselor in the halfway house. So now Casimir's got a 37-month sentence. He's already spent 16 months on his 37 months. Now he's at Coleman Low. The class is starting in April. He gets into this class. Now the class is going to take a minimum of 10 more months. So 10 months, 10 plus 16 puts him at what, 26 months. So if he now, Casimir, when you got into RDAP, what did you anticipate RDAP being like? Like what did you envision RDAP being like?
Well, talking to all the folks that I met in my BOP transit process, I judged it. And I figured if they can make it through the program, I can make it through the program. So I really didn't have a drug abuse problem. I did use, but it wasn't a problem for me, I guess. Other than that, I thought I could breeze through it. Don't do drugs. Be honest. Be cordial, respectful. That's who I am. So I figured that it wouldn't be any problem for me. Do a couple of journaling and an autobiography, and I'm good.
I know when I was getting ready to go into the RDAP program, I kind of, in my mind, for some reason, I always associated it this way. I don't know why, but I associated it to when you get like a speeding ticket or an infraction for driving, and they give you the ability to take like a driving course or a driving class to reduce some points so you don't get points on your license. I kind of figured it was going to be something similar to that, where it's basically just show up to class every day and nobody fails. They make the test impossible to fail. For you, Kashmir, how much did you find that RDAP had to do about drugs and alcohol?
Zero. Had nothing to do with drugs and alcohol. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, so you get into RDAP in April. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January of this year, basically January 2016, is right around the time that you were scheduled to graduate, correct?
That is correct.
And graduating in January basically would have left you with how much halfway house time?
It would have left me with I believe 4 months halfway house, 4 to 5 months, and a
Okay.
year off my sentence.
And a year off your sentence. So what happened? What happened in RDAP? Did you graduate in January?
Unfortunately, I did not, Dan. I actually got rephased, pretty much put back 3 months into the program, which took away time away from my qualification of the year.
So how much time did you serve in RDAP?
A total of 12 months.
12 months. And how much time did you get off?
I received 6 months off of the RDAP program, and I received 6 months halfway house, which gave me a total of a year.
So basically you had to do some extra time. So what caused you to get rephased? I'm sure a lot of people are like, what caused you to get rephased?
The truth being in the mirror. No, well, the people's perception, inmates' perception of me is pretty much what got me rephased, and me not admitting to it or so-called working on myself got me rephased.
So let's talk a little bit about how important people's perceptions in RDAP. So give somebody like an idea of what that means. Like if you were to spell that out for somebody, being the RDAP is not just going to driving school and showing up and taking your class. There's a lot of participation. There's a lot of aspects to RDAP, which if you guys have watched my videos, you understand that part of it. But Casimir, so just to kind of set the playing field a little bit, I remember when Casimir came into RDAP because I'd already been there. I've been in RDAP since January. So Casimir came into RDAP in April. So I was already in my second phase, getting ready to go into phase 3 when Casimir came into RDAP. I remember seeing this guy going, look at this guy over here. Now, in my background, I enjoyed making student films and acting and stuff like that. And Casimir is actually an actor. And I'll put a link to some of his stuff on the video. You guys can check out some of his little different reels that he's done. So Casimir came into RDAP in actor mode, not actor mode to where he was faking it, but just that's who he is. He's an actor. So he's very outgoing and very sociable. He speaks very well. He likes to keep his appearance. We're going to see how we can make this sound right. He likes to keep his appearance set to a certain way. Now, there's nothing wrong with making your hair look right and grooming your eyebrows. Casimir had the tendency to not really care too much who was standing around, or he didn't care what people thought, which is a pretty good quality most of the time. Now in RDAP, people's perceptions, if they want to feel a certain way about you, they can turn that into something. So with Casimir, they basically said that he was full of himself. He was egotistical. He suffered. What did they say you struggled with the most in there, Casimir?
I struggled with grandiosity. That was my problem. That was my struggle.
Explain what grandiosity is. I know everybody understands it, but being it was beat into your head, what did they say that looked like for you? How are you being grandiose?
For me, what that looked like to me is being too well groomed, caring about what I look like, being too much into fashion magazines, speaking too well, kind of over intellectualizing things too much, pretty much wanted to appear perfect when I was not.
So the perception is you had no problems. You were Mr. GQ. You were walking around. Your hair is always where it was supposed to be. You were worried about your physique. And everybody else saw this as you not taking the program serious and just kind of fooling around, getting through it. When really this just might be really who you are. But for those of you that are watching this, this is what RDAP is all about, because you are surrounded with, in our situation, there's about 150 guys that were in this hard RDAP unit. And from all different walks of life. Some guys were white collar criminals. Some guys were, crack dealers. So there's Casimir, a black male who doesn't fit the stereotypical black male prison type. So he had a target on his back the minute he walked in. And I remember you and I having conversations, Casimir, where I was telling you, hey, this is definitely the vibe you're giving off, regardless whether you're meaning to or not. You got to tone this down, because if you don't, it's going to end up bunking you on the head. So you and I used to walk the compound for hours and hours and hours, having great conversations. And this conversation came up a lot because of our environment. And it was no walk in the park for me either. I didn't get rephased. I just had I had a better, I don't want to say a better DTS. I don't want to talk about DTSs on this situation, but my DTS looked more into who I really was and what my character really was, where your DTS kind of.
The term was, he doesn't play kitty games.
Yeah.
That was the term.
Yep. So you struggled. You got rephased. You still graduated. But during this whole process, on a 37-month sentence, you served 24 you said?
21.
21 months on a 37-month. So a lot of the reason is you spent time initially. You spent that 2 months when you first got arrested in county jail. Mm-hmm. Then you went back and pled guilty. You decided just to stick in there, and you served another 2 months just waiting to get sentenced. Mm-hmm. Then there was another 4 or 5 months, whatever it took to actually get to Coleman before you even got to your designation, because you did not get to self-surrender. So all of this time that he sat ate up his RDAP time, to where he got into RDAP, he no longer qualified for the year off. And the most halfway house time they could give him was 6 months, because 6 months put you out the door, correct?
That's correct.
So when you guys are going to get sentenced, and you're going to take pleas, and you are trying to qualify for RDAP, remember, 37 months is the cusp. So if you can get sentenced to a couple of months over 37 months, if your attorney has the ability to request that, it can benefit you, because you never know what's going to happen. As you saw, Casimir got charged with a shank that basically stuck him in the shoe. It put him from a camp to a low. So there's a lot of things that you guys can take from his situation that you may not know. So where are you now, Casimir? Like right this moment, where are you at?
I'm actually at my parents' home, which is the residence where I'm going to be residing, on my 48-hour home pass from the halfway house.
So you're in the halfway, you're not sitting in the halfway house right now, but you are part of the halfway house. You're still doing your 6 months halfway house time, correct?
Yes, I am.
So you're on a 48-hour pass. Explain to people what that is a little bit.
Well, a 48-hour pass. Well, first of all, you get 3 different passes just to reacclimate you back into your family's life. They first give you the 12-hour home pass, see how you handle that. You have to check in with the halfway house, let them know that you're home. They're going to call you to make sure that you're at home at a certain time. Second pass is a 24-hour pass to see how you handle that. Again, you call in to let them know that you're here. and also they're going to call you to make sure that you're here at a specific time. The third pass is the 48-hour pass, and that's where I'm at right now. And the 48-hour pass is the very last pass that you get until they put you on home confinement. That's if you are at your home confinement date eligibility, which I have passed.
And just to be clear for you guys, that's 10%. So if you're sentenced, so like Casimir was sentenced to 37 months, he can do 10% of that time on home confinement. When do you finish halfway house, Casimir?
Halfway house completely done in October 9th, 2015, this year.
October 9th, 2015. So we are in July.
Well, 2016, sorry.
16, right. So
we're at 16.
He's got less than 3.5 months left. That's why he's eligible for home confinement. Now, he explained you get 3 passes. Your first one is your 12-hour, 24-hour, 48-hour. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to go right to home confinement. That just means that now every weekend he can go on a 48-hour pass as long as he's doing what he's supposed to do until he goes to home confinement. I did 48-hour passes for about from December to June. That's when, because my home confinement date didn't come available until the end of June. So I'm now on home confinement. So I'm at the next step. Casimir is getting ready to go to home confinement. What would you say halfway house is like?
They call it the transition house. It is definitely not helping with transition. I can definitely see how a lot of guys go back to prison because there's definitely no aid there. But I haven't really been gone from society that long to forget how to do things. So it wasn't that big of a deal for me, but there were some challenges with the counselors and also the work specialist over there as far as finding work. But I just adjust. But it is definitely not what I expected neither.
So, okay, with that said, it wasn't what you expected, but you're getting through it, correct?
Absolutely.
So what would you suggest to somebody? Because here's the thing. In life, you're not always going to be dealt the hand that you want. Things aren't always going to be easy. And I've told you guys, halfway house, it sucks in a lot of ways, but at the same time, I think it does suck so bad because other inmates, they push the envelope, they talk back, they cause extra problems. So that creates more stress. Really, the people that it affects are the people that are trying to do the right thing. It doesn't affect the guys that are running scams because they just find a way to beat the system. They say they're going out on a work pass looking for a job, and they don't go look for a job. They end up going and hanging out with their friends or spending time with the girlfriend. They get caught. So now the halfway house has to create new rules, which affects everybody. So even though it sucks, you're putting up with it. You actually, you got to, how long were you there before you got a job, Casimir?
I was there actually for a month, I believe, until I received the job.
Okay. So you were there about 30 days. And how many guys have you seen that are been there for quite a while and still don't have a job?
Still there. Still there. A couple of them actually went back.
Now, do they have excuses for why they don't have a job, or they just legitimately can't find one?
With the exception of one guy, his medical situation, but the other folks, really no excuse. It was to find it. Some of them just quit the job that they did have. So it's a different situation for a lot of different individuals there.
Okay, so you broke up a little bit. So basically, just to kind of recap that, a lot of the guys that don't have jobs, it's not because it's honestly lack of jobs. Maybe it's not the job they want. They're not used to working. They find excuses. They'd rather do other things, play with the system. They get fired from their jobs. And not everybody. There are some decent people in the halfway house, but the situation is going to be whatever you make of it. You can't win. You can't argue with them and win. You're just going to lose. You're going to end up going back to federal prison or back to county or wherever it is. So now you've had a job the entire time. You've had the same job, correct?
That's correct.
Is it your dream job?
No, absolutely not.
But it serves a purpose, correct?
Yeah, it definitely serves the purpose.
Would you be out on a 40-hour pass right now if you did not have a job?
No, I would not be on a 48-hour home pass.
So this is basically 48-hour passes aren't automatics. It's kind of a reward system for you doing what you're supposed to do in the halfway house.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
Gotcha. Casimir was one of the few guys that I would say bonded with, somebody that I looked forward to seeking out when I got out of prison. Casimir was my bromance while we were in prison. We had
we can say that now, not that we're not in prison anymore.
Yeah. Honestly, where the spot where we were at, we probably would have been fine having a bromance, and people wouldn't look. Because that's the other thing. You got to remember, we were at a low. It wasn't scary.
Yeah.
It wasn't violent. We pretty much got to do what we wanted to do. If me and Casimir had met at a higher level of security, like a medium or a pen, we probably wouldn't have been allowed to talk to each other because we were different races, So we were fortunate to where we got to go, and we had a lot of good conversations. I know we both missed our family, and as you can see from Casimir's got a little girl. She runs in the background there. I know that's one of the things that he only spoke about while he was in there was seeing his daughter. I still haven't seen mine yet. So it's good to see you.
Soon.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you that you're doing good, man, because not everybody gets out and follows the footsteps that you're following. Federal prison, whether you're at a camp, a low, a medium, a pen, time is time. You're away from your family. So you've got to make the best of it. And now that we're out, I can think about the fun times that I had. Every Sunday, me and Casimir, we used to watch Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead, and nachos and pizzas. And it was actually like back. I don't know about you, but I enjoyed those times.
For sure. For sure. It was bittersweet when you left, brother, but you had to lead the way, and really glad you reached out to me when you got out, and definitely reached out to me when I got out. So I really appreciate it.
I'm going to put Casimir's contact information on here, and if you guys have any questions, Casimir will be available. He can email. Obviously, he's still in the halfway house right now, so in the next couple of weeks, he should be on home confinement. We'll probably see more of him. I'll have him on the show more. We'll talk about some different situations, workouts, food that we used to make, a lot of fun stuff. But for you guys, for right now, always like my video, share my video, subscribe to my channel. Check out my website, rdapdan.com. Check out my Facebook. Just go to Facebook and look up rdapdan. Real easy to find. And without your guys' support, there would really be no purpose of making these videos. The comments, the help that you guys need, that's why I do this, and that's why I'm getting Casimir on here now, just to give as much support and help to you guys as possible. Casimir, do you have any final words that you would like to say to somebody that's getting ready to enter into the federal system on preparing some things that they might want to do real quick?
Going into the federal system, definitely ask your lawyer for the judge to see if they could have you self-surrender. I didn't know anything about that, so you definitely want to self-surrender instead of going through the transit process. When you get there, man, take your time. Be patient, be humble. One thing that I had to learn, that I was not an actor in prison. I was an inmate like everyone else. So like Dan said, take it on the chin, man. It gets better. It gets better. Keep trucking.
Well, Casimir, I thank you for coming on here today. I'm sure everybody watching this is going to take a lot from this. And that's it. Rdap Dan. Love you guys. Take care.